So, first things first, John, how are you?
I'm good. I'm just sort of working my way into the day. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Before we talk about the album and the music, I'd like to start with, well, the title of the album is derived from two separate languages.
Yeah.
Was it already at an early age that you knew that you liked language and the way it was used?
No, I was in my teens when I started to realize that I loved foreign languages, and it was because of music. I sort of fell in love with the voice of Nina Hagen when I was probably 15, 16. I'd become aware, I was sort of become interested in her in the early 80s, around 1982. It was through her music that I became interested in German. And I suppose it was through Russian classical music, because I grew up playing classical piano, that I became interested in the Russian language.
So, well, you have these two interests, and language on the one hand, music on the other.
Yeah.
Which one kind of started to take hold of you first?
It was music first, and then the languages came after that. Because I was learning to play the piano when I was quite young.
Okay.
And yeah, I suppose it was in my, I don't remember exactly when it started, but I was playing classical music in the 70s, and I had discovered ABBA in the 70s, you know, and fallen in love with their harmonies and the way the girls sang and the music in general. And it's funny, I was never, I knew that ABBA's lyrics were not interesting to me. I just thought it was like, I don't know, I suppose I found the stories interesting at times. But I knew, it was funny, I knew that they were doing, the language that they were using was a little bit weird. I do remember noticing that, you know. And, but it was definitely music first, and then languages came after that.
And am I right in saying that you studied German?
Yes, yeah.
And so when you went and studied German, where was music? Was there an ambition then to become a musician? And
No, I was going to become a translator or an interpreter. And so I was studying German and Russian at a German university, the University of Mainz. I was at the University of Heidelberg for a year, and then I transferred to the University of Mainz, and because they had an institute for applied linguistics, and so it was all about languages for me at that point. Although I was very into music, I was buying lots of music and constantly listening to music, but it wasn't until I went back to the States in '94 that I decided that I was going to start making music myself.
So you weren't composing anything or writing anything?
No, not really, huh?
Okay. And then, well, we kind of have to fast forward through this because you obviously have a new record, but then you were with the Tsars, now that because in 2010, I believe you released your first solo record. What for you was the biggest difference between composing with artists and having your own kind of child or thing to take care of?
Yeah. I mean, I really wanted to, I think I always wanted to be on my own because I wanted to have control over the final product. And when you're with a bunch of other people, you can't really have control over that final, you know, it sort of needs to be a democracy, or you have to have decided at the very beginning that it's not going to be a democracy, you know. And so the biggest difference was me just being able to do whatever I want. And of course, you know, if it doesn't work out, then it's all your fault too, you know. So you're carrying a lot more responsibility, but I was willing to take that risk because I wanted to be able to have control over the final product.
And then you say that all the blame falls on you then as well. So was there a lot of pressure when you started writing your first album, or to kind of were in the process of releasing it?
Not really. I mean, there was some pressure because I didn't know whether I could still write songs. I didn't know whether I still had I didn't know whether I had the passion or the ability, because I sort of felt like a failure after my first band, and you know, I was probably blaming myself too much for that. And so I figured it was all my fault. So there was the pressure I put on myself to write good songs at the beginning of that. And then, but you know, the atmosphere that I was in with Midlake, they created a really comfortable atmosphere so that I didn't really, and nobody was expecting anything from me at that point. So, you know, I had disappeared, and you know, nobody knew that I was making an album, you know. So there wasn't that much pressure. There was more pressure for the second record and the third record, you know, because then because the first record did really well, and then of course people expect something from you, and then you put pressure on yourself. But I think I did a good job of sort of ignoring that when I went into the studio.
Is that a difficult thing to do, to ignore kind of all the chatter about what people are expecting, what they say to you?
It can be on certain days, but I think once you get back into the studio, then the passion for just making music takes over, and you get distracted by technical problems and just figuring out how to do what you're trying to do, you know. So there's a lot of things to distract you from that, and I think it's in the studio. It's not too bad, you know. At night in bed, when you're staring at the ceiling, that's a different story, you know. That can be, it can get to you sometimes.
What kind of things do get to you then? Are they relating to the music, or just about being a public figure in a way, and people having their opinion about you?
Well, you just worry about whether people are going to like it or not, and whether you're going to be able to, what am I going to do if this doesn't work out? You know, what will I, you know, will I go back to waiting tables, or will I, you know, try and pick up my my language career, or you know, you're just thinking about stuff like that. You know, just what will I do if it doesn't work out?
And then quickly, you mentioned that the passion was kind of gone in between the band and yourself. When did it come back to you?
Well, I don't think it was really gone. I think it was always there. I just think that it was. I was sort of down on myself. All you had to do was sort of scratch the surface again and see that it was still there, you know. But I don't think that ever really left me. I think, you know, I may have perceived it that way, but that wasn't really the case. Yeah.
And well, you mentioned then with the second album there was more pressure, but again it was received well. Now the third album, again received well. Does it become... Well, I've read a lot about you that you still sometimes question. How should I put it? That you don't have that much self-confidence, or that those kind of things shine through in the lyrics. But with all this praise and critical acclaim, does it get better, or does it change the way you look at your own work?
Well, you still have to keep, it doesn't really change it that much, because I don't feel like I can, you know, if you use that external praise for your self-esteem, that can go away quickly, because people can change their minds quickly if you do an album that they don't like, for example. But I do think I have more confidence in my ability to write a song, you know, but I don't think you can ever really let your guard down. I mean, you always have to be, you can't ever really rest on your laurels, because there's a lot of, you always have to keep challenging yourself and keep trying to get better. I mean, you don't have to try to be something that you're not. I think it's a tightrope walk between just challenging yourself to get better and not trying to become something special just because you think people are expecting something bigger from you.
Right.
You know, people like you because of what you are doing, not because of what they think you might do. You know, they like what you have done already, and so all you really have to do is continue to be yourself. But it can be a bit of a mind fuck sometimes. I mean,
So this confidence, does it happen gradually, or was there a moment where you thought, well, I'm actually, you know what, I don't care anymore?
I think self-confidence for me is it's sort of something that you have to do on a daily basis. I don't think it's just there. I think you have to remind yourself on a daily basis. You know, it's something that you have to just keep reminding yourself of. You know, that because the past keeps bubbling up, and
Sure.
and feelings from the past and from your childhood keep bubbling up. But I think you learn how to deal with it better. You know, I'm still not the most confident person in the world, but I like where I'm at, you know. I don't want to be one of those people who thinks that everything they do is amazing. You know,
Sure.
I don't like that either, you know. So I think there's a good middle ground, you know.